regular Drainage Board meeting prior to the special hearing. So that will take a few minutes, so please be patient with us as we get through those agenda items. And the first agenda item is the opening of the bids for the Jeremiah Edwards 130 regulated drain reconstruction bid.
First bid's from Putnam Earthworks.
Okay. Well, it's already past 9:30.
That has a total quote of $693,499.75. Second one is from Atlas Excavating. That one has a total quote of $581,000. And the last one's from Maxwell Farm Drainage. Hey, Brenda.
Thank you.
That one has a total quote of $237,000, or sorry, $237,050.
All right, thank you for those who participated in the bidding process. Those will be reviewed during the course of the rest of the meeting and then hopefully awarded at the end of this meeting. At this point, we'll move on to the approval of the May 6th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the meeting minutes from May 6, 2020.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes. And then
President,
Jeremiah
I move that we
Edwards.
approve the May 6 Jeremiah Edwards regulated drain hearing minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes. All right, and on to our project, the American Family Paving.
This was submitted by Star and Associates. Tori or who, someone here from Star to present? Yeah, okay. Yeah, please go ahead and do so.
Tori Tripp, representing Brad Pedigo, American Paving and Asphalt. The project's located east of the intersection of Old County Road 350 South and 500 East on 19.35 acres. The project will include a new office building, entrance drive, associated parking, gravel stockpile areas, and a detention basin located in the northeast corner. That will all be part of Phase 1. Phase 2 will include conversion of the detention basin to a wet pond. And in the future, he does plan to have an addition to the office building and another building, and that all of those were included in the drainage report. The site drains to the northwest into a beehive inlet on a 24-inch pipe that ultimately discharges to branch 9 of the Elliott Ditch. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Very good, thank you, Tori. Tori, a couple things. Where do you stand with the highway department and the entrance, and is there, I'm sure you've been in communication with them, but I guess that's the main question. What's the status?
Scott Seipel with Star Associates. We have submitted and received initial comments.
Okay.
And we're in the process of addressing those comments and returning submittal.
Very good, thank you. And then Tori, while we were reviewing this, the detention basin is going to be done in 2 phases. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit for the record? Is that correct?
Yes. Yep, initially, it's going to be a dry detention basin, and then probably in 6 months to 8 months, he's going to convert it to a wet pond. So we did both designs in the construction plan and accounted for both in the drainage report. So the outlet doesn't change on either one, what we're discharging, whether it's dry or wet.
Very good, thank you. I have no further comments. Those were the two big items that I wanted to point out. We have reviewed it. It is in compliance with the Tippecanoe County Stormwater Drainage Ordinance. We are recommending construction approval to date, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Is there any public comment in regard to this request? All
Mr.
right.
President, I move that we approve the memorandum dated 5/21 from BFS to approve construction approval for American Family Paving.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of construction. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes. And now we have a petition to encroach.
Yeah, for the same project, American Family Paving, they also submitted a petition to encroach along Branch 6 of the Elliott, drain number 100. I have reviewed that, and they submitted the appropriate paperwork, and there's an exhibit attached to the petitions. I see no problems. I'm ready to recommend approval.
Mr. President, I would move for approval of the petition for encroachment on a regulated drain as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes. We'll move on to other business.
Very well, thank you. The first item under business is that we have a maintenance bond for Stones Crossing Phase 4, Section 4, bond number 76634466 from American Insurance Company, from Midwest Paving LLC in the amount of $28,815.10. I would recommend approval as presented.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes.
And then we have a reconstruction financing contract that was submitted by Kenny Byers, landowner on the Marion Duncan. Doug and I have worked on that. I'm ready to recommend approval. Doug, if you have any comments.
Yeah, would actually be a subordination agreement. You have a reconstruction financing agreement with Mr. Byers that is currently second to his mortgage, and he's refinancing that. And so by approving the subordination agreement, you won't be in any worse position, and it'll assist Mr. Byers, so I'd recommend it.
So what we're actually approving is a subordination agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, I move that we approve Mr. Byers' subordination agreement.
Second.
We have,
I guess we'll mention for the record that it's no relation to Drainage Board member Byers.
Second.
so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes.
Very well, the next item is a petition to partially vacate a piece of the Delphine Anson number 4 regulated drain. This is a piece of the Henderson branch that lies immediately west of County Road 100 west in Tippecanoe County, which is immediately south of the small town of Cairo or Cairo, if you're familiar with that area. I'm ready to recommend approval as presented.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes. All right, anything else, Zach?
We have hopefully the awarding of the bids. I know we moved pretty quick. Jim, did you have the ability? You got it? Okay. Okay, so the lowest one does check? Okay. So the board heard and the public heard what Mr. Butcher just said, but Jim Butcher is my project manager in my office. He was checking the bid numbers. He said he checked the lowest bid number first, and it does check. He has not got through the other two, but so long as the board's comfortable with the lowest bid, then I would say we go ahead and move forward.
Mr. President, I move that we award the bid to Maxwell Drainage for the total amount of $237,050.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes. Okay. Is there any?
Just real quickly, Mr. President, if I would, just for the good of the order, we have multiple spraying projects going on right now, so if landowners see our spray rigs out on open ditches, that's why landowner notification letters are being worked on currently. Some are in the mail, some are on their way, so if you do see folks spraying, that's why, so just give everybody a heads up.
Okay, thank you, Zach. All right, is there any public comment before we move into the other public hearing?
Nothing on Facebook.
Nothing? Okay. All right, so we will, I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting, and then we'll start the public hearing in probably, what, 5 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
okay. We are adjourned.
Board attorney, and by extension, the attorney for the Butler-Gosma Regulated Drain Number 95. We have a joint drainage board meeting here with John Heimlich and Steve Burton of from White County, Tracy Brown and Tom Murtaugh from Tippecanoe County, and Neil Mosley, the independent from Montgomery County. And I'm just sort of convening this because we need to have a presiding officer. In the drainage board code, or the drainage code doesn't really set out the way to do that. So I think the best way to proceed would be to take nominations for presiding officer.
I would nominate Tom Murtaugh to serve as a presiding officer.
I'll second.
A motion and a second for Mr. Murtaugh. Do we have any other nominations? Close the floor. All those in favor of Tom Murtaugh to preside over this meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the floor is yours, Tom.
All right, thank you. All right, as we get started on this, I want to make sure that everybody has signed in, and the sign-in form is over here on the table. And then if you do, when we get to the public hearing portion, if you do want to speak, please step up to the microphone to do so. At this point, I'll turn it over to Zach to give us some background.
So before I read my reconstruction report, I would make a request to the board. Sandra Doyle came into my office earlier this morning and asked me, well, she stated that she has to leave at 10:30. Would the board entertain letting her have her 3 minutes of public comment before I read my reconstruction report?
Is that okay with the board?
Okay.
By consensus, we agree.
Sandra, please proceed.
Good morning, board members. Thank you for allowing me to go early. My name is Sandra Leahy Doyle, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my mother, Joanne Leahy, as her power of attorney, and also on behalf of myself as a shareholder in the R&J Leahy Farm Corporation, which is impacted by this drain. So I'm just going to read the letter that I've provided you, and attached to my letter is an invoice with the expense that we have invested in an upgrade in tile for our property. So, dear board members, this is in regard to the proposed reconstruction of the Butler Main Sub-Basin of the Butler-Gosman Joint Regulated Drain. I have an interest in the above drain project as a shareholder in the property owned by the R&J Leahy Farm Corporation, parcel number 7901-001-400-001-000-014. The tax description for that is the east, northeast, northwest, northeast, section 12, township 24, range 6, which is 117 acres, 117.8 acres, and also a parcel in the southeast section 1, township 24, range 6, which is 80 acres. I would like to convey to the board that I am in favor of this project moving forward due to the positive impact it will have on our 197.8 acres of farmland. In 2016, our farm corporation invested $41,301.80 in tile improvements. These improvements failed to meet our expectations for improved drainage due to the issues with the Butler Main Sub-Basin. Over the years, the drainage issue has been an ongoing problem for our farmland. On our north 80 acres, we have experienced up to 44% of crop loss in a year. As you can see, this is a huge loss for our farm. Reconstruction of the Butler Main Sub-Basin will alleviate the majority of this drainage issue and allow our production to these parcels to reach their full potential. We have also experienced drainage issues for the south 117.8 acres, but they are not as substantial as the north parcel. We ask for your favorable approval of moving forward with the reconstruction of the Butler Main Sub-Basin of the Butler-Gosman Joint Regulated Drain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well. I will proceed by reading my reconstruction report. Butler-Gosma Regulated Drain Number 95, Reconstruction Report, April 17th, 2020. A petition to reconstruct the Butler-Gosma Regulated Drain Number 95 was accepted by the Tippecanoe County Drainage Board and referred to the county surveyor for a reconstruction report on April the 4th, 2018. The current Butler-Gosma drain and its watershed consist of 5,915 acres, or 15.77 acres, again, 5,915.77 acres, and is located in sections 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 17, and 18 of Township 24 North, Range 5 West, and Section 1 and 12 of Township 24 North, Range 6 West, in the political township of Shelby in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, and sections 33 and 34 of Township 25 North, Range 5 West, in the political township of Round Grove and Perry, respectively, in White County, Indiana. After reviewing the historical information, it is apparent that the Butler-Gosma drain was previously known as the Herman Butler drain and the AP Gosma drain. The Herman Butler drain was formed out of at least two smaller drains called the Hiram Taylor and the Robert N. Taylor drains in approximately 1911. The AP Gosma drain appears to have been originally constructed as a tile drain. The exact dates were not found, but the available data points to early 1900s. In 1971, landowners in the Herman Butler watershed petitioned the Tippecanoe County Drainage Board to establish a maintenance fund, and a rate of $1 per acre was established. Starting in 1980, landowners requested that the AP Gosma be reconstructed. The result was the construction of an open ditch to relieve pressure off of the tile. This was also when the Herman Butler drain was combined with the AP Gosma drain to form what is now known as the Butler-Gosma drain. Additionally, the Joint Drainage Board meeting minutes indicate the reason for joining the two drains together was to create one maintenance fund. However, after reviewing the reconstruction assessments for the most recently constructed Gosma open ditch excavated in 1987, it appears that only the landowners in the historical AP Gosma watershed were assessed for the cost of the new open ditch construction. What does this mean today? Previous landowners felt there should be one maintenance fund and that construction or reconstruction should be paid for by the landowners within the benefited watershed subbasin, which is demonstrated by the historical actions and the last action taken by landowners and the Joint Drainage Board in 1982. After 2 years of research, field investigation, and multiple informal meetings with landowners, the Tippecanoe County Surveyor recommends to the Joint Drainage Board, for the purposes of this hearing, to be as equitable as possible, that the Butler-Gosma drain be divided into 7 subbasins. They are as follows: 1, Gosma West; 2, Gosma East; 3, Coons Branch; 4, Butler Main; 5, Williamson Branch; 6, Martin Branch; and 7, the remaining watershed acres that drain directly into the open ditch and would pay only the maintenance assessment. Proposed work by subbasin. Excuse me. Number 1, Gosma West. No reconstruction is recommended at this time. Number 2, Gosma East. The surveyor recommends this branch tile be vacated at this time. After construction of the Gosma open ditch, landowners now have a direct access and the tile is no longer needed. Number 3, Coons Branch. The surveyor recommends a partial reconstruction. Landowners west of US 231 report significant drainage issues. A new 18-inch tile is recommended to be extended from the most recent 24-inch tile installation to the west of US 231. Total cost equals $115 per acre. Number 4, Butler, Maine. The surveyor recommends a partial reconstruction. The tile east of US 231 is in bad physical condition. Cracking and quartering are present and poor drainage is reported by landowners west of US 231. The surveyor recommends a 30-inch tile to be installed from headwall to approximately 3,640 feet west of US 231. At this point, an 18-inch tile shall be installed to the north side of County Road 900 North, and a 24-inch tile shall be installed to the west side of County Road 750 West. All installations will generally follow the old tile. Total cost equals $320 per acre. Number 5, Williamson Branch. The surveyor recommends a partial reconstruction. Landowners west of US 231 report slow drainage. The capacity of the existing tile appears to be the issue. The surveyor recommends new 24-inch and 18-inch tile to be installed from head wall to the west side of US 231. Total cost equals $325 per acre. Number 6, the Martin Branch. The surveyor recommends full reconstruction based on drainage concerns in the subbasin. It is recommended to replace the main east and west tile branches. Total cost equals $420 per acre. However, some landowners have expressed concern of cost. Therefore, an alternative partial reconstruction of the system would be to reconstruct the main and east tile branches. That total cost would be $280 per acre. The remaining watershed acres, the survey recommends those landowners would pay only the maintenance assessment rate. Please note that all reconstruction work within US 231 road right-of-way will be paid 100% by INDOT, the Indiana Department of Transportation, per Indiana Drainage Code. Lastly, regardless of the reconstruction process and outcome, it is recommended by the Tippecanoe County Surveyor that a maintenance assessment rate be set at $5.50 per acre with a $20 minimum over an 8-year collection total be approved by the Bi-County Drainage Board to ensure sufficient funds are collected for the needed open ditch dredging, clearing, and maintenance work of this drainage system. Respectfully submitted, Zach Beasley. Couple other things real quick. Doug introduced the Drainage Board members. Just for those that don't know, Brad Ward is here, also the White County Surveyor. And thank you, Brad, for being here. Brenda Garrison is the Drainage Board Secretary. Many of you have spoken to Brenda. So with that being said, I've read my reconstruction report. I think I mentioned earlier, and if I didn't, I apologize, but I would recommend that the board set a 3-minute limit on public comment. I have had about 5, I think, informal meetings with the landowners in this watershed, so I think it's been thoroughly vetted for maybe those Drainage Board members in White County that didn't know that. Some of the, I think all of the Drainage Board members in Tippecanoe County have participated in those informal meetings, so there has been an enormous amount of work put into this project thus far, and so I want to make that clear for the other Drainage Board members. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's what I have as of now.
Okay, any questions for Zach from the board?
Well, just a comment. I don't know that, again, I've only been on the Drainage Board since 2015. I don't know that I've seen one that is as comprehensive as this, so I know a lot of work went into it, and I appreciate that, Zach.
Welcome. If I may say one other thing, I think Brenda gave each one of you a packet, so before we open it up for public comment, this is another housekeeping item. I want to make sure the board understands that they should have received a packet that included many things, but the 2 most important things that I want to point out as of right now as we move into public comment for all the board members is that you should have a watershed map in front of you that looks just like the one on the screen. Hopefully you all have hard copies of that, and this for the public and virtual audience. You should be able to see it on your screen if you're participating virtually. That number 1. Number 2, the Drainage Board members were also provided a spreadsheet, or actually several pages that each page has each individual sub-basin broke down on that page, and so you should have received that, and it should have basically each row of landowners that have already stated before this meeting started that they were either in support or opposed to whichever branch and or maintenance or whatever the case may be. It shows up on the spreadsheets, and the spreadsheets roughly look like this for the Drainage Board members, for the public. So I want the public to understand, those of you that are here today that already sent me letters, I have those letters. I put together this spreadsheet so that the Drainage Board members know how you feel before we open it up for public comment. So I want the public to be assured that I took your letters. I put this together for the Drainage Board so that they know what we have as support right now for each one of the sub-basins. So hopefully that makes it a little clearer and easier for everyone to understand. So just so the board understands, I did receive multiple letters from multiple landowners You should have those in your packet also. I've lost track of how many we received. It was a significant 12, 15. I don't remember, but each one of them are shown on these spreadsheets. And so if you'll look at the very bottom, so just as I'm drawing attention to the board members, down at the bottom, I'm going to point to it. So I'm looking right now at the Coons Branch, and I'm just using it as an example. Over on the bottom right side, you'll see a support and objection total, and it gives you the percentages if you see what I'm saying there. They're color-coded, so the red means opposed, and the green means in support, and then, as I said, on each one of the pages, you will see down the bottom right, underneath the benefited acres column, you will see a percentage of support and objection, if you follow what I'm saying there. It makes it a little easier for you. Mr. Mosley, does that make sense to you? And Mr. Burton? Emily? Yeah.
Zach,
Yes, sir.
Tracy had a good comment. Would it make some sense to do public comment in
Each subbasin.
in each subbasin?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
you beat me to it. That was the next thing I was going to recommend. Obviously, I work at the pleasure of the board. My recommendation to the board members is that you seek public comment from each subbasin individually. Don't just open it up to the whole watershed, because my advice to you, obviously you do as you see fit, but my recommendation to the board here today is when you open it up for public comment, as I stated before, 3-minute limit, and then also state that you're opening it up for whichever subbasin. I would just pick one and then just go around the horn, if you will. If you want to start with the Coons or the Gosme East or West, whatever you want to start with, but start with a particular subbasin and ask only the landowners that have land in that subbasin to come up and speak on that subbasin. And then as you hear their comment, you can then mark on your spreadsheet with your pen or highlighter or whatever, if they are in favor or opposed. Then once everybody speaks in that subbasin, then you can tally it right up on your sheet, and you will know if you got the majority of the benefited acres or not. So that may be, that's my recommendation. Obviously, the 5 of you decide how you want to do it, but I thought that might be an easy way for you to keep track of it.
Does everyone think that makes sense? Okay.
So that'll mean some landowners obviously will have the opportunity to speak
twice.
several
Yes,
times.
yes.
Okay. And then Doug will serve as our timekeeper.
Sure.
All right, so again, you have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. And is there any reason we wouldn't give anything else before we
No,
start public
I'm
comment?
good, unless there's any questions for me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so we'll start first with the Coons Branch. So whoever would like to speak in regard to that particular subbasin. So
Yes.
it's the green on the map.
Yes. So those in the audience, if you're looking at the front, actually, I'm gonna come up because the laser doesn't work on this. So everyone in the audience virtually understands the one we're talking about right now. If I understood the board correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to start with the Coons Branch, and that is indicated on the screen by the green one, yes, this one here. That is the green substation as indicated on the map. Yes. Sorry, the laser does work on this particular screen. So I'm talking about the green subbasin here. If you have trouble visually seeing that, I'm referencing the very top
that's what he told us.
left or top west subbasin, which is along US 231.
My name is A.J. Boer. I own 12 acres within the Coons Branch. However, I also represent my sister Jolene Rice, who owns, I believe, approximately 40 acres within it, and 2 aunts that combined own, 250 acres within the Coons Branch. It seems like east of the Coons Branch, the drainage is working properly, and west of the Coons Branch, it is not working properly. And last week, I stopped along US 231 where the Coons Branch crosses under 231. There is a 12-inch main where it crosses under, and it is obviously collapsed. I talked to some other landowners in the area, showed it to them. Evidently nobody knew about it. I don't know how to explain it. But it's a 12-inch tile crushed down to approximately 3 or 4-inch opening. And so that would, in my opinion, that would explain why it's draining fine east of 231 but not west. And so my opinion is that we should probably fix where it's crushed at the air well and also see if it happens to be crushed under US 231. And once we've determined that that's all flowing properly, then we need to address on whether we need to replace the entire system. But it's obviously restricted. You don't need to dig, you don't need anything. It's 3 feet off of 231 and you look down the hole and see it's crushed to a 3-inch opening. So that's my opinion on the Coons Branch.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I'm Roger Strasburger, and I'm a tenant for the Robert Williamson farm that's on the west side. And AJ and I did look at that situation, and there is some problems down there. I'm not sure if it's quite to 3 inches, but anyway, the history of this and why my landowner supports this is, we've been on that farm with my family since in the 40s, and there's been not sufficient movement through that tile since then. I don't think that tile's been completely in disrepair since that time. I do feel like there's just a capacity issue, and I know the part of it was upgraded. I'm not sure whether it was a county project or just a group neighborhood project that everyone chipped in on. And I know I worked with Ralph Boer on that, and we thought, well, that would help us because it opens things up, but it did not. And that's why we're in favor of continuing this project. Thanks.
And I'm sorry, Roger, who did you say was the owner of the property?
Robert Williamson.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, real quick, while the Drainage Board members are looking at their spreadsheet, one of the housekeeping items I forgot to mention, on the spreadsheet, if you just mark down the Robert Williamson property on the Coons Branch that Mr. Strasburger was speaking in favor of, you will notice that name is in bold on your spreadsheet. And then if you look all the way over to the left, the first column, you'll see signed petition. The reason why that name is in bold is because they signed the petition originally. So I want to make sure the Drainage Board understood that. So in the Coons Branch, you'll find that there's 2 names that are highlighted and 2 rows that are highlighted, or I'm sorry, not highlighted, that are in bold black text. It's the Kirchhoff Brothers LLC property and then the Robert T. Williamson property that Mr. Strasburger just spoke in favor of. Those 2 names signed the petition originally. So I want to make sure the Drainage Board members understood that if you wondered why those 2 names were or in bold.
Morning.
Hello, my name's Philip Kirchhoff, and I represent, in this particular branch, Kirchhoff Brothers LLC. They have 10 or 15 acres on the very far north and very far west piece there. And so I just wanted to reinforce the point that this is our opportunity to get a good construction of a pipe underneath US 231. As Zach has explained how that gets paid for. And so I want to make sure that we reinforce that point in regards to whatever we do, that we do or overdo whatever kind of pipe we're going to put under the highway there. The other thing I wanted to mention is that with Zach's help, I'm the guy that originally carried the petition, and that grew into carrying a petition for the entire 5,900 acres. So, all of you here, I assume, that many of you at least I've talked to at some time or talked to representatives of yours, and didn't talk to every landowner in regards to collecting signatures, but this has, I just want to note that it's been, although there's been a lot of debate and dispute of whether we should do this or that this community that's well represented here has voiced their opinion, remained very civil and neighborly in most every way, and I want to celebrate him in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else for the Coons branch?
Nobody's going to say any other public comment there. I want to jump in and say something, but one other item that there's a piece of history that I was informed of by the landowners on this particular branch, and somebody may want to speak to it other than me, but my understanding is that 25, 30 years ago, that in the Coons branch, that there was a large percentage of the landowners that oh, it doesn't work. Yeah, there we go. If the board members want to refer to the screen to the left, Mr. Mosley, it's right above your head. They went together and paid and pulled their money privately, and I think maybe even worked with the NRCS or SWCD at the time to replace this downstream portion, about 3,000 foot or so from the head wall to the north, and it stops basically here at this juncture where the tile breaks over to the west. And I know I've spoken to many of them about it, and the 3 or 4 that just got up and spoke, I don't think mentioned it. I know I've spoken to Mr. Widmer about it, and Paul, I don't know if you're here. Yeah, he's there. Paul's here. Paul, I don't know if you want to talk about that or somebody else wants to talk about that, but that's a piece of factual information that I think is very important for these 5 board members to understand on this one so they can make intelligent decisions. So I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that or not, but.
I'm not much of a speaker, so here we go.
That's okay, Paul.
A group of neighbors got together, and it was proportioned out to everybody, and we were told by the surveyor at the time that the only way we were going to get it accomplished was to do it on our own, and he would back us. The guys, we all got together, put it in. I'm not quite sure why we quit before we got across 231. But we did. And I will say that the people across 231 are not getting their fair share out of what they paid in. And I'm probably not, if we go off with this project, I won't get any good out of it, I don't think. But I think it's fair. So I can look out my front window and see the ponds across the road, and there's none on the east side of the road. So I talked to the guys from West Point. They were there the other day working on some tile, and they had no knowledge of the broken down air well, and they said as soon as they got some markings there for everything, they'd come dig it up and take a good look under the road. So that would be a great start.
Yep.
I don't know, Zach, is that a 12-inch under the road right there?
I don't have it right in front of me, Paul, but I believe so.
And you want to put a 15 in?
18, I think.
18?
Yeah.
Will the state
18.
accommodate that?
Yes, the state will pay for everything within the road right away, yes. Yes.
They'll upgrade it no matter what then?
I have to initiate it, or we,
Okay.
this entire, you guys and gals as landowners in this body, the drainage board, so.
Okay. There's any questions about what we did? Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else before we move to the next branch? Okay. So we'll move south to the Butler, Maine. Is there anyone that would like to speak in regard to that subbasin?
Good morning, my name's Dave Leahy. I'm a brother of Sandy Leahy Doyle, who spoke off the bat here this morning. And I'll just read the letter that I submitted to you all in a week prior. This letter is regarding the proposed reconstruction of the Butler Main sub-basin of the Butler-Gosma Joint Regulated Drain. I am a property owner that is affected by this reconstruction. I'd like to share my thoughts. I'm an outright owner of one property and a shareholder in another property that would be directly affected by the project. The two properties that were mentioned by Sandy were the R&J Leahy Farm Corporation properties that were approximately 197 acres, and then I own 2.06 acres of my own that are in this sub-basin. I'm very much in favor of this project because of the positive impact it will have on these two parcels, primarily the larger parcel owned by R&J Leahy Farm Corporation. As Sandy mentioned, the Farm Corporation invested about $41,000 in recent years to improve drainage on the above parcel, but little improvement was realized because of the issues with the sub-basin. The drainage issue is particularly troublesome on the North 80, where we've experienced as much as 35 of the 80 acres impacted in one crop year of it being a total loss. It's a very significant loss and cannot be sustained year over year. Reconstruction of the Butler main sub-basin would alleviate the vast majority of these drainage issues and restore the 80-acre parcel to their full capabilities. This has been an issue for as long as we can remember, that this is not drained well on that 80 acres. There's additional issues with the south 117.8 acres, but not to the extent as experienced on the north 80-acre parcel. My personal 2.06 acre parcel has a tile that ties into the sub-basin and would also benefit from the reconstruction. Continued delay of this project would have a serious impact on the productivity and potential resale value of these parcels. Therefore, I highly affirm moving ahead with this project as soon as possible. The benefits of this reconstruction will have a significant impact on the productivity of these parcels as well as surrounding parcels, and in my opinion, should not be delayed. So thank you for allowing me to comment, and thanks, Zach, for your work on this.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
My name's Richard Nesbitt. I'm a member of JDR Nesbitt LLC. We have approximately 115 acres in the Beutler, Maine. Mr. Beutler being an heir to Mr. Beutler, couple generations on down the road. We have been in favor of this project since its initiation. The main will come directly through our property. There's been times when we've needed to do drainage improvements, but obviously the capacity has not been there to provide adequate outlet for what we believe needs to be done, and we would like to work on that in the future, but we are in favor of this Beutler main reconstruction. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Donald Nesbitt. I'm a member of the JDR Nesbitt LLC, and I also own a 4-acre parcel that would drain into this. As my brother said, we are definitely in favor of it. It would hopefully alleviate some of the ponds we have and make things more productive. So I'll say I'm in favor of it and go from there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
When did we switch from Coons to Butler?
I don't know, probably 3 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago.
Sorry about that.
Did you have a comment in regard to Coons? I mean, we can come back to it at the end if you'd like, if the board is okay with that.
Well, no.
Okay.
I've got comments on Butler.
Oh, okay.
I'm Weldon Lockman. I'm right in the middle of all this. The head wall starts on my property, the open ditch starts on my property. So I'm in all the basins, okay? Now, I don't care what kind of tile you put in, but none of it is going to help me one iota. Now, I'm serious about it. It will not help me one iota. I've got excess in open ditch. I don't need any of these. And the expense is way too much for what I'm going to benefit. I don't know how else to put it, just that It's just not right. Now, there's problems with the letter that we got from Zach. There's problems, I see problems in there. It does not have any end on, it says annual payments on the ditch construction as to no limits whatsoever. The maintenance on the open ditch, there's no cap on how much we got for maintenance on the open ditch. Now, does this go on forever and ever? It's in my letter that I wrote to Zach here March 10th, dated March 10th. It's in the letter, all that's in there. What else? Yeah, I'm just against it because, like I say, I don't have a problem with them crossing me, but if they want to cross me, that's fine. They pick up my share of the bill and you got access to the open ditch. And another thing, it hasn't been said to all the meetings I've been to, are you going to remove the old main and put the new one in the same place, or are you going to put one right beside it? And who's going to clean up the broken tile and all the other stuff for the next couple of years before we get this back into shape where it ought to be? There's nothing been said about what the crop damage payment's going to be. I think all that needs to be approached here so we know what we're looking at. I think that's probably all I got for now. Thank you.
If the board would allow me to answer Mr. Lockman's, I think, 5 questions or comments. Well, first of all, you may not have been in attendance at that particular meeting, but out of the 5 meetings that we had, I did go over each one of these items just for the record.
Yes, I was there.
Okay.
You did not put it in print.
Okay. Well, please allow me to answer the questions. So the first question was in regards to the reconstruction and the annual dollar amount that was on your letter. So first and foremost, the format of those letters and the material and how it's laid out, the format in those letters is largely driven by the Indiana Drainage Code requirements, okay? Number one. Number two, to answer your question directly, the reconstruction is a 5-year reconstruction. I think the easiest way of stating that is that basically the landowner will get a bill in the mail when the treasurer's office sends them out. Typically the treasurer's office does not do that until we actually complete the project. And they will typically, the Drainage Code states that they can send it out any month of the year. However, here locally, they tend to send them out in May and November, around those time periods, because either one of those time periods, because that's when the property tax bills go out, okay? So with that being stated, when you receive that, here you have, as a landowner, the ability to pay 100% of your cost within the first 12 months after you receive that letter. If you don't, whatever the remaining balance is, the treasurer's office, by Indiana Drainage Code, will charge a 10% penalty on the remaining balance. And that occurs every year on the remaining balance. If there is a remaining balance after year 3, we'll say, there will be another 10% penalty charged for that. That's the way this Indiana state law is written, and it's similar to how property taxes well, it's not similar, it's exactly the same. There's a 10% penalty on your property taxes also if you don't pay them. So that answers that question. It's a 5-year payment, Weldon, but the law says you pay it within the first 12 months if you don't want to be charged a penalty. If you don't, then there's a 10% penalty. In Tippecanoe County, they will allow you to pay it on a payment plan. That will be in the letter also, or there's a third option that we've put together that is a contract a landowner can enter into with the county, and you pay 5% interest or penalty, however you want to look at it. So that's the answer to that question. The second answer is in regards to your maintenance rate and the cap, if you will, on the maintenance rate. The way the Indiana law is written, this board can set a 4, 6, or 8-year cap on the maintenance funds, and what that means specifically is that the annual collection total, so if it were, say, $5,000 a year, that's what it was, if that's what the total is. If the board wanted to set it in a 4-year cap, then that'd be $20,000, right? So you take whatever that collection is, multiply it by that 4, 6, or 8 multiplier, and that becomes the cap on the maintenance fund. So once the money builds up to that cap, it shuts off and becomes inactive. Obviously, if we're performing maintenance functions out of that fund and the balance comes down as the money's coming in, it may stay on longer than 8 years, but that's the way the law is written. So that answers that question. The next question you had was in regards to the tile placement. Yes, the intentions are to by and far, especially on this, let me answer indirectly to your property. The main branch, the Butler Main that we're currently talking about, the Butler Main subbasin that we're currently talking about, that goes across your property, that tile is being proposed to be removed. So the existing tile or the old tile would be removed and a new tile put back. We don't put it right back in the same trench because if you talk to many tile contractors, they don't want to put it right in on the other one. We offset it, 5, 10, 15 feet, whatever the case may be, and we put it in typically in native dirt. So it would be off, the new tile would be offset just a little bit, and then we would come behind that and dig out the old tile. And typically it's a crush in place and bury. And so they shouldn't need to pull the tile chips up on the surface. I'm not saying that won't happen because it does happen from time to time, and if that happens, they make equipment called rock rakes and to pick that stuff up, and so we take care of it. We did one here just not too long ago, and we do it routinely on multiple projects. The fourth comment or question you had was in regards to the crop damage. The Indiana Drainage Law does not require this board or my office to pay crop damage. However, in this county, I won't speak for White County, but in Tippecanoe County, the Drainage Board and the County Surveyor's Office has set a precedent way before I was the county surveyor, but it is the precedent in this county to pay crop damage on this, and we do all the time, Weldon, and everyone else. The way that works is that as I've mentioned to many of you in these informal meetings that we've had already, the best time for landowners to get the best prices on these reconstruction projects is typically in the summertime because the tile contractors are not as busy, obviously, because the crops are in the ground. However, that requires us to come and damage the crops on the folks that we're crossing. And if you look at it from a matter of fairness, the people in the watershed, or in this case a subbasin, that have property that surface drain or have private tiles that drain into the county mains that we actually physically don't have to come on their property and damage any crop, they're paying the maintenance rate only. If we come on somebody's property and have to damage their crops, then theoretically they're paying whatever the assessment rate is plus the crop loss that they're made. So that's why we pay the crop damage. That's the reasoning behind it, the rationale, if you will. And so what we do, Weldon, is that as whatever we damage, we take our surveying equipment and we locate it all and draw it up and measure it, measure the area. And so I know how many acres we've disturbed on each parcel of ground. And then it's on the honor system for that individual landowner or tenant farmer or whoever we're working with to report to us what their average bushel per acre is at the end of the growing season after harvest. They will report that to me and my staff, and we take that and I call around here locally to Cargill and some of the other folks here locally that buy and purchase grain on a daily basis, and we pay the going rate. Well, that's how that's done. We've done it that way for a number of years, and a number of landowners in this county have done that, and they seem to be happy with it. So that's the answer to that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think I've addressed all 4 of your questions.
Thank you. Let's, if you want to respond to I'm sorry, if you want to, at the next branch, could you? Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, because you've spoken in regard to this one, but you said you have ground in other branches too, so. Yes.
Again, I'm Philip Kirchhoff, And I have a lot larger amount of acreage in this branch than in any of the others. I do have an interest in one more branch. And I just wanted to say that there's a huge volume, almost a total volume of very productive soils, but there's been scores of years where really the upper part of the water, I'm on the top side of watersheds in a few places besides here, but it always seems that drainage projects in the past, they tend to fade in their spending as you reach that upper echelons of those watersheds. And so, we talk about crop damage and like that. We've sort of been retaining a capacity of water for, again, those scores of years on very productive soils. I think this whole effort that's taken a couple of years or something like that, this is a great time to even the load and allow the plan that has been presented take place. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in regard to this branch?
Not done yet. How much tile cover is going to be on that, Zach? What do we got now?
Right now, it's about 2.5 to 3 foot, 3.5. Some places 4, some places deeper now, Weldon.
On that 24?
Yeah.
I'll argue that with you. It ain't that deep.
Well, in some
Ain't that
places
much
it's not.
tile cover.
Across your property?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not. It's shallower than that. But I don't have all the plans right here in front of me, Weldon.
The new tile, you want to put it in deeper?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah, so we make sure we tie all the laterals in. That's standard operating procedure.
Because otherwise, you're not going to maintain the tile cover. And what we got's not enough.
I understand that, yeah. We've got topo and all that. I mean, if you want to meet me offline, Weldon, I'm happy to show you all that. I'll even give it to you, and you can give it to your designers, and they can all take a look at it. But here's what I can tell you. We've gotten topographic survey data on all that. I have contour data on it. Yes, I mean, we have elevations. We'll make sure it has the appropriate cover by the manufacturer specifications, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
I'm just concerned we're spending a hell of a lot of money here and not going to get a benefit out of it. Because right now, as dry as it's been, I was back there Sunday and took pictures of it. The 24-inch main and the one coming out of the Coons branch are 1/3 full of water. Right now, as dry as it's been. And no wonder it won't drain. Now, I've taken pictures of the open ditch, and it's growed up with grass and silt. And when they put the head wall in, they got a platform, 4 foot wide apron, that the water is supposed to come up to the apron, with the tile about 2 inches above the apron, jumping out of the tile onto this apron and into the open ditch. Well, of course, the apron's covered, and we got 1/3 of the tiles covered. No wonder last year everybody had ponds. So there's a lack of, you got to keep the ditch open before you're going to get any benefit out of it, even if you put a bigger tile in.
Looks like that's 3 minutes.
Pardon me?
That's 3 minutes, sir.
Okay.
If I may real quick, Weldon, I want to say this, to make sure everybody is aware of this, and the board and the public. Dredging an open ditch the entire length is part of this project. It's just done under maintenance.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this particular branch? Are there any comments or questions on the stream?
No, give it just a pause. I don't see anything. No.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on down to the Williamson branch. Is there anyone that would like to speak in regard to this subbasin?
Again, my name is Richard Nesbitt, member of JDR Nesbitt LLC. We have about 40 acres in this branch. First of all, I'd like to thank Zach, Jim, and Brenda for their work on this entire project. I think that's been invaluable and very informative, and I appreciate that work. again, we are in favor of this. There are drainage problems in the area that need to be alleviated. There are different people benefit differently. I understand this, but something that I've had concerns with from the beginning, from when we went from a 5,900 acre project down to our individual little fiefdoms here, that if we're all able to pay the same dollar per acre of a maintenance fee, then why is it that we have 6 little different drainage areas here? If it's equitable and equal for us to all pay the same maintenance fee, then I have had concerns in the past, or have concerns about the variable costs among the little different areas. I know we're all probably past that by now, but I would like the board to take that into consideration when you start looking at voting on each of these little individual projects. The fact that we're all expected to pay an equal amount for maintenance on this, then I'm a lot more, I think there's a lot more pressure at that point to say, well, if it's all one part of a drainage district, then we ought to be looking at making the whole thing work together, and each one of the little branches needs to be given equal consideration. Thank you.
Okay, again, my name is A.J. Boer, and I own approximately 160 acres within the Williamson branch. In April of 2018, we bought the 160 acres at auction, and immediately after the auction, we dug what I guess I would call observation wells, where the 15-inch main crosses County Road 850 North, and another one where the 12-inch main crosses US 231. We dug those so that we could see right from the road when the conditions are wet, see how full the tile is. Well, immediately along 231 where we dug, there was kind of a real wet hole there that had flooded out for years and years, and we noticed that the tile was not completely full, so we put a riser there. And that actually solved that problem, drained the water immediately. I called the people that farmed directly across the west to me and showed them what had happened there, and that there was plenty of room in that tile. They put a riser over there. Their pond's pretty much been gone the entire time since then. During the year of 2018, we watched those, we looked in those observation wells after every rain event. It became very obvious that tile was not at full capacity very often. Occasionally after a big rain it'd be at full capacity. And so I went ahead with the permission of Zach Beasley and went ahead with a $90,000 tile project. It's all in your packet there, to pattern drain one of my 80-acre fields into that tile. And so at the beginning of 2019, we had a brand new tile system, pattern tile system, $90,000, worked fantastic, and 2019 was one of the wettest years on record. And so now I'm waiting for permission. Once I get permission, I will pattern tile another 80 into that existing tile that's not cleared full yet. And we also, when we dug the observation wells, at one point it was 7 feet deep where it crossed 850 North, and it was 5 feet deep where it crossed 231. And what we found was, when you have tile that deep, they stay in good condition. They don't quarter and break like they do when they're, say, 2 or 3 feet deep. So the condition of the tile is wonderful. It looks like it's brand new, but it's probably 100 years old. So anyway, if we go ahead with the sniffing project here, as proposed, my part will be over $42,000 to replace a main that, in my opinion, is in good working condition, and we already drained an 80-acre farm into it. So my proposal would be, let's stick with what we've got, and if we continue to pattern tile into that system and realize that we're overloading it, then let's update it at that time. But I would rather spend my $42,000 on pattern tile than replace an existing main. And as far as across the west of 231, I believe that pattern tile will fix their problem the same as it did on my side of the road. That's all I've got on the sniffing branch.
I've got a little over 70 acres in this project also, and there again, it will not benefit me whatsoever. But it's going to cost me $23,000 just to help do whatever needs to be done across the road.
Again, I'm speaking for the Williamson Trust Farm that is on the west side of the road. And I see Weldon's point. I think that tile is good coming across Weldon. When it gets into AJ's first 80 he mentioned that he tiled into, it's good there. The capacity is there. In my opinion, where I feel the problem starts to come in is as it crosses the next two 80s coming towards US 231. I think the capacity then becomes not adequate. I think that there's been some work done on one of those 80s to try to fix some of that tile, and I've heard conflicting reports about how good a shape, the grade, certain things about that tile that worry me. I think this is a great opportunity to, these, and here I am the tenant, but no money coming out of my pocket other than additional rent if this gets passed, but the way that I see the board needs to work is, some projects are fair for others, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes, it's a tough situation, but right now we have the opportunity to upgrade a tile that will probably last 50 to 100 years, and I just don't think we'll see it again if we let it go today. That's why we're for this project.
Again, my name is Philip Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff family has maybe 100 acres, something like that, in a couple of different locations in this particular branch. I think AJ, my neighbor and friend AJ Boer, makes a very good point in regards to there's a whole bunch of acreage in this branch that is very suitable to system drainage, very heavy soils, tidaled, poorly drained, but very productive kinds of soils. And many of the acres that are in this watershed, including the 80 that AJ recently tiled, they are just wonderful candidates for that. You got high value farms. The percent of cost for system drainage now as a percent of the total value of the farm is actually much more of a bargain than it used to be 20 years ago when land prices were maybe a whole bunch less than they are now. So does it make any sense to pattern drain most of the acres in this watershed into an old existing tile, even if it is a good one? And that's the point I would make. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Any comments on the stream?
No, sir.
Nope. All right, we'll move on to the Martin branch. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the Martin subbasin?
My name's Edward Slayton. I'm part of RLJ LLC. We've got 140 acres on the very east edge of this Martin branch, and we have no drain at all. And we can't get drainage. I'm even having surface water back up. So it is very important that we get at least an outlet to our property and to open up the main big enough to where if people are pattern tiling into everything, that they still have enough capacity for the rest of us on the top edges of this watershed. It's controlled pretty much at the bottom. We can't get an outlet. We'll never get an outlet if we can't get this project through. Because it is basically controlled. We don't have ditch access. And without ditch access, we cannot drain. And so our ground is limited in production now. It'll be even more severely limited if we can't get a chance to at least do some tiling. I'd like to think that anybody on the top edges of any of these watersheds are severely restricted by what's controlled close to the ditch. Those guys got every opportunity to tile on their own because they have an outlet. If you don't have an outlet, you can't drain. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
I'm Richard Nesbitt. I own a 40-acre tract now in the Martin branch of this drainage system. My acreage was added to this drainage area since January 1st, 2020. I've had 40 years of drainage problems, and neighbors in the room here who farmed the farm before I owned it have had drainage problems. Again, lack of an outlet. A decent, correctly sized outlet would correct most all of my problems, and the proposed system would do that. Again, I'm being asked to pay $420 an acre in order to get this outlet that I've needed for many, many years. The other two drainage systems, or the former drainage systems that I pay into, also do not provide adequate outlets. This would be of benefit to me, but now, or as of when this project started, I was not even a member of this Martin branch. Now I am. Now I'm asked to pay $420 an acre to fix the problems. I'm willing to do that. I think it's a good investment. Again, based on maintenance, there's no reason for me to pay $5.50 an acre year in and year out to correct something that I have no benefit from. And I believe if these acres are part of this drainage system, then we all need to share some benefit in it. So I think I would ask that you look at this as a combined drainage project as opposed to these little areas here, and look at how it benefits everybody in the community. Thank you.
Again, my name is A.J. Boer. I own approximately 80 acres within the Martin branch, but I also represent my mother and sister, who combined probably own, I don't know, approximately 250 acres within the Martin branch. The problem I see with the Martin branch is that it wise off very quickly into two branches as soon as it leaves the open ditch. You've got the current Martin branch, which is to the west, and it's working sufficiently. That's not to say that it doesn't break down occasionally. We have to fix some stuff. But then there's a lot of it to the east that's included with the Martin branch, and evidently when they designed it, they planned on a surface drain because, again, there is no tile going that way. But the problem is it wise off very quickly right off of the open ditch. And if they each had their own outlet to the ditch, it would be very simple to split it into a Martin East, Martin West. I hate to spread up more branches, but what it's going to amount to is everybody on the west branch is draining sufficiently, and the east part either aren't draining sufficiently or don't have access to a drainage. So I don't know what to do there, but a lot of people are in this watershed that don't even have access to a tile at all. And so I guess what we're asking is, some folks are asking other people to pay for their tile, is what that amounts to. Anyway, that's all I have on the Martin branch.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Any comments on this drain? Tracy?
Yeah, let me look real quick. It's delayed just a bit. I have no comments on the stream.
Okay. And is it appropriate then, Zach, to open discussion in regard to the maintenance?
I think we need to do the other two branches just real quick, or actually just one, I guess, because So this may be more of a housekeeping issue than anything, but I want to make sure we're all clear. So on the Gosma East and the Gosma West, so let's just do the Gosma West first in White County. I'm proposing no reconstruction, and that was based off of my meetings with the landowners, and I think we're still in agreement there. One of the things that I want to, the reason why I'm having this conversation is the next one, the Gosma East. I had, in my reconstruction report, if you remember when I read it a few minutes ago, I'm proposing to the board and recommending to the board that that tile on the Gosma East be vacated. After I wrote that, and that was based off of communications that I'd had with the landowners. Since then, I've had 2 phone calls, one from Mr. A.J. Boer and one from Mr. Doug Morehouse, telling me that they had changed their mind and they did not want that to occur. So I'm bringing that to the board's attention, and A.J., I know you're here, Doug, I don't know, yeah, there he is, Doug's here. I guess, and they're not the only landowners in this sub-basin, but they're the 2 that I've talked to. I guess I'm asking for clarification from the landowners on that, because if there has been a change of heart, now's the time to state it, because this board needs to vote one way or another. So.
Doug Morehouse, and first of all, I want to thank Zach and his staff. They've been fantastic and done diligent work. I am representing myself as a landowner and also the William Parkinson Trust. Between those 2 entities and Mr. Boer, we farm the almost all of that Gosma East. And having been back there working on tile, I'm going to disagree with the statement that we now have direct access and that tile is no longer needed. It is needed. The open ditch is very helpful, and we can take that Gosma East, and probably the west third or so can go straight into the open ditch. But unfortunately or fortunately, there's some very good dirt there that's a little bit too low to hit that ditch. So I would recommend to Zach and the board that they table this portion of it, or let us, we're certainly the 3 landowners, or the 2 tenants, and the rest of the landowners are willing to work together on coming up with a solution, but I think it warrants some further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Zach, can you clarify on the map the border of Gosma East?
Yeah, so the easiest way to look at it, if we want to look up here, and I'm going to do 2 things here. I'm going to show the board members on the screen up here, and I'm going to come out in the public and show on that other screen so everybody in the audience and virtually can understand what's going on here. But generally speaking, for our board members first, I'm talking about the area that's in the top right corner of the map on the screen here. Those drainage board members from White County, and I know Mr. Ward, the county surveyor, will know exactly what I'm talking about. But the open ditch that was constructed in the 80s, I think 86 or 7, is shown by this north-south blue line here that I'm pointing at. So what we did as part of this, and just so the board knows, I'll back up just a moment here. When I initially, after we received the petition and the first informal meeting that I had with the landowners, we had discussed doing the entire watershed as one reconstruction rate, one maintenance rate, so on and so forth. And the input that I got back from the landowners at the time was that they didn't think that was fair, because the folks over here in this Gosma, the historical Gosma watershed, it didn't think it was fair to have to pay for the stuff over here on the western side, and vice versa. And so I went back and did a little homework, as I stated in my reconstruction report, and I looked basically how they originally constructed these branches to begin with back in the late 1800s, 1900s, and they constructed them as individual branches. And then, as I stated, this open branch, when this drainage board, this joint board met in 79, 80, and 81, I went back and read all the drainage board meeting minutes, and many of the folks sitting here in the audience today, either them personally or their direct descendant family members were involved in that process. And so that open ditch was constructed at that time. And so what we did, and as I stated in my reconstruction report, at that time, the landowners in the AP Gosma watershed were the only ones that paid for that open ditch. The folks over here did not, as I stated. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because from all those informal meetings, we separated it out into the subbasins, and so this subbasin here is this open ditch run north and south. The Gosma East, the one Mr. Morehouse was just speaking to, is the one basically on the right-hand side here. The tile line is shown as a very kind of an orangey color, beige, if you will, and then and it starts at the head wall of the open ditch, and then everything. What I proposed was to vacate everything from the head wall of the open ditch down to the open the Beitler open ditch, and so that was based off of the communications that I had with the landowners, and then the Gosma West is everything west of the open ditch over in this location. And just real quickly, I'll come out here to the audience and show the audience the same thing, here physically and virtually. So as I described to the drainage board members, there's a blue line here, if you can see it, that runs straight north and south. Those of you familiar with the area know that that's the most recently constructed open ditch. The Gosma East subbasin is everything to the right or to the east of the open ditch, and you can see it by this beige, brownish, orangey looking line. That's the subsurface county tile. And then the Gosma West is everything west of the head wall here, and the tile is the red county regulated drain shown here. And so, as I stated, I proposed to vacate this based off of some conversations I've had with the landowners, and so if you know, I just want to make sure that the board understood that, because my understanding as of late that thought process or concept idea may have changed. And so if that's the case, I wanted the landowners to have the opportunity to tell the board that, because that would need to be corrected in your motion here before too long. So that's it.
Okay, again, A.J. Boer, I represent my mother and my aunt in this particular watershed that combined own approximately 200 acres that's just within the watershed. One of the original proposals was going to be to replace that existing 24-inch tile with another 24-inch tile, so we weren't going to upsize it. The one that's there now, we have to fix it occasionally. I think probably in the last 10 years, we probably fixed 2 different locations where it's broke down. We do that on our own. We don't contact the county. However, the county did put in a new access at the head wall to the ditch for us. But anywhere it breaks down, we just fix it on our own. But in order to reconstruct that thing was going to cost my mother and aunt $94,000 to replace an existing 24-inch tile with another 24-inch tile. Now, that's not to say I wouldn't love to have it, especially when it's on my mom and my aunt's dime. But at the end of the day, it's $94,000. Now, I wish I lived in a world where, you know, my cows never got out and my trucks never broke down and my tile never broke down. But for $94,000, I can fix some tiles. So I proposed to Zach Beasley that rather than spend $94,000 to replace it, I'd rather they abandon it and we'll just take care of it ourselves, which is what we've been kind of doing for the last 10 or 15 years anyway. The problem with that is if you look, they obviously put that main right down through the lowest part of that particular branch. If you go to the east of that branch, the land starts to rise and there's not enough fall to get to the Gosma open ditch. We have to go south to the Butler ditch. So if the county abandons it, we still need to use that tile. We don't have fall enough to get to the Butler branch, or the Gosma branch, I'm sorry. So I misspoke, I'm sorry, Zach, but there's just simply not enough fall to abandon it. And between Doug Morehouse and I think we are tenants on 100% of the area within the Gosma East branch, and all of our landlords are in 100% agreement to not abandon that, because they still have to pay the $5.50 maintenance fee to maintain it, but by abandoning it, we're not maintaining it anymore.
Anyone else choose to comment about in regard to Gosma East?
Can to their comment of whether it's abandoned or whether it's kept as a part of the maintenance, is that an issue at this time with what we're trying to do?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
The two different items there. One is to abandon it and let them deal with it, or keep it in the watershed. Is that something in our proceedings here that can be changed, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I believe so, yes. So just to kind of recap a little bit, the reason how I arrived at my recommendation to the board was based off of conversations that I'd had with the landowners, mostly Mr. Boer and Mr. Morehouse, and AJ just gave a very good recap of kind of how that had transpired. And then I think they had got together and as AJ said, and talked about this, and there's some grades concerns. And so I think and Mr. Masson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's within the board's ability to basically change my recommendation from vacating it to leaving it as is. Because it's currently a regulated drain now, and we can spend maintenance money on it. But the issue kind of is of the tile right now, it's old and it has some problems cracking and quartering, and we've spent quite a bit of money repairing it. And I know, and AJ just said this, I know the landowners themselves have spent quite a bit of money trying to keep it updated. It's in need of repair, or reconstruction, I'm sorry. It's in need of reconstruction. However, as AJ mentioned, the cost is significant. And so it's left up to the board on what they want to do. I understand where the landowners are coming from. It's there. Hey, let's try to get some use out of it. I get that. You know, I don't know what else to say. I'm out, as you guys are doing the same thing. I'm trying to do what the landowners want done, or at least the majority. And so I don't see any huge harm in just leaving it as is. So my initial thought process, Mr. Burton, is that they reconstructed the open ditch, and so you have this monstrous open ditch, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, that runs up through there. That's a much larger capacity outlet than that old tile, and so that's what started that conversation. So.
Will any of this open ditch and that, either the ditch that runs north and south or comes from the west, will that all be at grade, or will the grade change in the reconstruction?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Can you restate that?
The open ditch that was put in that runs north and south.
Okay, yeah.
Will that be deeper? You mentioned over here to the west that some of the tile will be deeper. Will this open ditch through that area remain at its current grade, or will it be lowered?
So, okay, so I think I understand. So let me answer it this way. So so let's talk about the Gosma open ditch, the one that was the newest one that was constructed, the one that runs straight north into White County. That one was dredged by my office 2 winters ago, I believe it was. And so I don't think it's filled up enough to where it needs it again. So we just recently dredged that one. So I am not planning on dredging it as part of this project. The only dredging work is being proposed right now is on the Butler main, which basically starts at Morehouse and goes all the way over to the head wall on Mr. Lockman's property. So.
Okay, that answers it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zach, I just have one question. So that would be a change from your original scope of work here. Does that, if that remains, if it's not vacated, does that does or does not have an impact on the maintenance cost of range of $1 to $5.50 per acre with a $20 minimum?
No, it would remain the same. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other in regard to the Gosma East? Well, Zach, do we need to go into the Gosma West?
I don't, if you're asking me, I don't think so. I'm proposing no reconstruction, but if anybody has any comment, obviously.
Okay. Would there be any comment in regard to Gosma West?
Just did west, right?
No, we just did east.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll step up.
Okay. And Zach, I do have one quick question before we move into the reconstruction, or I'm sorry, the maintenance. On the Martin branch, could you briefly explain the alternate on that?
Yes, yeah, I'd be happy to. So Again, before I start, I will do both screens just so the audience can follow what I'm doing, because I know this screen over here is hard for them to see. And just so the audience understands, the laser, my laser doesn't work on these two, and the laser that we have that works on them is not working for some reason. I apologize for that. For the board members, so yeah, the full and the partial on the Martin branch. So the branch, so the Martin branch is the branch down here in the south center of the map, central location, kind of southeastern part of the watershed. As you can see, it has a main that lies from the open ditch and goes down to, I believe, somebody help me out, is that 850, 750? 850, thank you. 850, County Road 850 north in Tippecanoe County. So the main goes from the open ditch to the south to County Road 850 north in Tippecanoe County. And then, so that is the main portion that I'm talking about. And then the parcel reconstruction would consist of that main from the open ditch down to 850, then the eastern branch, which is the branch that goes off here to the southeast. As you can see, as shown on this map, currently the regulated drain is only the line work on this map that is in red. So as you can see, the current regulated drain stops just on the north side of 850 or just on the south side of 850. It's generally in that location. When we looked at this, it became very apparent to me that the landowners over here in this eastern branch were relying on whatever private tile is out here, and there's several hundreds of acres that it lies in this area. And so I talked to these landowners, and Mr. Slayton spoke a few minutes ago. And I know the Goodyear and Kirkpatrick property is immediately on the west side of the 450 West here. I've spoken to them. They, as far as I know, they are in favor of extending this branch because they're in dire need of that. So that would be the parcel. The full would be that plus the western branch, which includes everything here as shown, this red line that comes off of the main, goes south of 850, and then heads on to the south-southwest. So that is the difference between the parcel and full reconstruction.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to discussion in regard to the maintenance. So anyone who would like to speak in regard to that? Wow. Good. Anything on the stream? Nothing on the stream. Okay. So we'll close the public comment portion and move on to see if there's any questions or comments from the board.
Only that when we are proposing motions for this, will those will be based individually and taken one at a time?
That's what I would think we'd have to do.
Hey, Ray, help me out.
Okay. And we have, looks like, again, with the Martin, we do have two alternatives, both the full or the partial.
Well,
Oh, Mr. Attorney Masson just asked me if I wanted to speak in regards to a couple of Scrivener's errors that I found. In the overall landowner list, there was, I think, 3 or 4 rows. I think 2 of them were county road right-of-way, and there was 2 other slivers that were found in error. They were actually 0 acres and 0% of the watershed, and they slipped through my QC process, and I do apologize for that. But what that means is that those 3 or 4, I don't remember how many there was, rows that I found in error were being charged a $20 minimum. So the ones, the subbasins that they were in on the reconstructions, it dropped one of them by $40 and one of them by $20, I think it was. So that's what Mr. Masson was asking me. That's that. We did correct that, so I don't see that being anything earth-shaking, but that is a Scrivener's error that I found. So.
And then, Doug, do you have any recommendations on how we handle the, do you need to read the orders?
Yeah, so before this is done, I'm going to have to read a proposed order, and I have something sort of drafted up that's based on what the surveyor did. You've heard information today. You may want to adjust that some. There's a couple of things that'll have to happen. One, I'll need to know whether you want to move forward with the Gosma East abandonment. Two, on the Martin, whether you want to go partial, full, or not at all. And then whether you want to do any other adjustments of the assessments in the various subbasins. So I think, what you're doing is figuring out, number one, should these reconstructions go forward at all? Number two, should the surveyor's recommendations be the assessments that you impose, or should you make adjustments to those assessments?
And Zach, is there any significant downside to doing some of them now and some of them later?
No, I don't think so, other than the, potentially, cost going up, but that's the only thing I can think of. My office and my team have set it up to where, it can be done a la carte, if you will. I mean, some can be done now, some can be done later. So I don't see any major problems with that, no.
Any other questions or comments?
On the partial reconstruction on the Martin, and I understand that is the main, and then adding the branches that I can barely see them on here, but there's the dotted branch that benefits the folks that are on the eastern part of that watershed. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. So and Tracy, as you mentioned on your map, it's being shown as this dashed yellow or orange line coming to the east in the subbasin. Currently that's an 8 and a 10-inch line in that area, and some other private tiles associated with that. When we did the drainage calculations and the design work on this, based off of the area and a 3/8 drainage coefficient, we're showing that needs to be an 18-inch all the way to the east side of 450 West, there on Mr. Slayton and family property. So my point of saying that is that it's per the industry standards on how to size tile, it's woefully undersized currently.
And would you mind pointing out then what the additional, under the partial alternative, what else would be replaced in addition to adding that eastern tile?
As far as the parcel reconstruction?
Right.
Yeah, so just real quickly, from the parcel would consist of starting at the open ditch here, coming south, I think with a 30, a 30-inch tile, and then it would change to 24, and then somewhere roughly just south of, I think on the Brewer property, it would change to 18, and 18-inch would go to the east side of 450 West.
And it's in your report, but I can't recall. Again, on the Martin, the line that runs straight south, is it would you classify that in poor condition right now?
The main branch on the Martin?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's in poor condition?
Yes. It's moving water. Let me think about that. Is it moving water? And so I'll say this. Let me detract what I just said. What we found is that it's a clay concrete system. It's past its life expectancy. Is it flowing water? Yes. It's not breaking down and sucking water and creating big, tile holes and blowing water on the ground and creating a surface ditch. I would say that's a catastrophic failure and real poor condition. It's not in that shape. But it certainly reached its life expectancy. But could it go ahead and be used for a few more years if the landowners want to do this at a later date? Yeah, it is, yeah. I mean, in this location, but you got to keep in mind that as soon as you cross 850, And I'm not advocating one way or another, I just want the board to have the facts. As soon as, that's true north of 850, but as soon as you cross this 850 and get over here, you're getting into several hundreds of acres over here that have no, yeah, very little, yeah. So just be mindful of that is all I'm saying.
All right, so if there's no other comments, I would entertain a motion in regard to the, starting with the Coons branch. Or do you want to read the findings first?
No, I think I would need to know how you want to proceed before I.
You don't want action on the first two items on the Gosma West or Gosma East?
I figured that would be in the motion when we got to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're looking at Coons right now?
Correct.
Mr. President, as to the reconstruction report dated April 17th, presented by our surveyor, I would recommend that we move forward as proposed with the Coons branch.
And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and it's probably best to do a roll call vote, or you?
You can, but you don't have to. But yeah.
Okay. And then, is there any further discussion in regard to that motion? All right, I'll ask our attorney to do a roll call vote.
Gotta get everybody's names back straight. Let's see. Mosley?
Aye.
Heimlich?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Murtaugh?
Yes.
The vote is 5-0 to proceed with the Coons branch as recommended.
Okay, and then I will entertain a motion in regard to the Butler, Maine.
Again, Mr. President, in reference to the reconstruction report dated April 17th, I would move for approval of the Butler, Maine as outlined.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Mr. Masson?
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Burton?
Yes.
Heimlich?
Yes.
Mosley?
Yes.
That motion is 5-0 to proceed on, this is the Beutler, Maine.
Beutler, I'm sorry. And now we'll move on to the Williamson branch.
Mr. President, I would move that we move forward as outlined in the report dated April 17th with the Williamson branch of this project.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Masson?
Mosley?
Aye.
Heimlich?
Aye.
Burton?
No.
Brown?
Yes.
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 to proceed on the Williamson branch as proposed.
Okay, so then with Martin, obviously, a motion's going to have to include whether we're going with the full option or the partial option. Do we want to have discussion in regard to that prior to that motion? What's the board thought on that?
I, for one, think that it's, in my mind, it's pretty straightforward after having listened to the landowners and looking at the documents that Zach has presented us with. And with that said, I will go ahead and move that in regards to the Martin branch of this project that we move forward to the alternative partial reconstruction of the system.
And do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to proceed with the partial in regard to the Martin branch.
So, Murtaugh?
Could we question on that, so we're, so I'm certain of, again, what the partial consists of?
Yeah, so, let me, can you see the laser pointer, Mr. Heimlich, or?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I just want to make sure. So the open ditch is indicated by the blue line here, where the beige or the orange subbasin starts. So this red line here would be replaced down to roughly where this red line here splits off. And then it would be replaced on to the south east, and it would stop on the east side of County Road 450 West. By 24. I said 30-inch tile before. I was looking at my maintenance report. I don't have all the design information in here. Jim, do you happen to remember off your head? Was it 30? Yeah, okay, 30 to the Y. That's what. Oh, yeah, right here it is. I'm sorry. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, so just for clarification purposes, it is 30-inch. 30-inch from the open ditch down to the Y, and it changes to 24, and the 24 goes south of 850 north, and then it changes somewhere in this general area to 18-inch, and the 18-inch would come and stop here on the east side of 450 west. So that is the that comprises the partial reconstruction.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further comments or questions? Okay.
Mosley?
Aye.
Excuse me just a second. So this is for the partial?
Just
Partial,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Heimlich?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Brown?
Yes.
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Motion passes to proceed with the partial alternate for the Martin subbasin.
Okay, and then we'll move on then to Gosma East. And obviously, in this motion, we need to consider whether to not abandon it or to abandon it as it was originally proposed. Do we need to have, Zach, you want to clarify that just briefly again?
Yeah, so during, I think we had 5 informal meetings. At some point in time during those meetings, I spoke with Mr. Boer and Mr. Morehouse, and then we had phone conversations and then several communications back and forth. And so at one point in time, we had reached a decision. My understanding was that we were in agreement to vacate that tile. Since that time, I think they have looked at some other aspects of it that with the grade and some other things that they don't feel comfortable with. And AJ mentioned earlier that concept or mentality or that thought process has changed on their end. And so I'm informing the board that what I propose in my reconstruction at the time I wrote this has since changed with the landowners which I represent, and they are telling me now that, hey, Zach, we prefer you don't do that. And so what I'm doing is I'm letting the board know my understanding from what the landowners are telling me, they would prefer that this board do not vacate that as I presented in my reconstruction report. So I would recommend that the board keep the tile as in, which would be not to vacate it.
Okay.
I would make that motion that we not vacate the Gosma East.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Masson?
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Burton?
Yes.
Heimlich?
Yes.
Mosley?
Yes.
That motion not to vacate passes 5-0.
And then do we need to take action on Gosma West since there's no?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay. So do you want to proceed now with the reading or do we move on to the maintenance?
You should do the maintenance as
Okay,
well.
okay. So at this point, we need to move on to setting that maintenance rate. And I will entertain a motion in regard to that.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the maintenance rate as submitted. Any further discussion on that?
Mosley?
Yes.
Heimlich?
Yes.
Burton?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Murtaugh?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 to proceed with the maintenance rate as presented.
Okay. Now it's your show.
So bear with me, and this will take a second. But as I understand the will of the board, I would recommend the following findings in order be adopted. That this matter came to be heard upon the reconstruction report and schedule of assessments as prepared by the Tippecanoe County Surveyor and filed on April 17, 2020. The certificate of mailing of notice of time and place of hearing to all affected landowners was filed. Notice of publication of time and place of hearing was published as required pursuant to IC 5-3-1. Objections were filed. Evidence was presented by the Tippecanoe County Surveyor and landowners affected were present. A list of those present is filed herewith. After consideration of all the evidence, the board does now find that the reconstruction report of the surveyor and schedules of assessments as determined by the board have been filed and are available for inspection in the office of the surveyor. Notice of filing of the reconstruction report and the schedule of assessments and their availability for inspection and the time and place of this hearing was mailed to all those landowners affected more than 30 and less than 40 days before the date of this hearing. Notice of the time and place of this hearing was given by publication as required by IC 36-9-27-52 and IC 5-3-1 more than 10 days prior to this hearing. The legal drain consists of approximately 28,334 lineal feet of open ditch, 41,781 lineal feet of 10-inch to 18-inch tile, and 12,911 lineal feet of 24-inch to 30-inch tile. The present condition of the regulated drain is poor and in need of reconstruction and additional maintenance. With respect to its reconstruction and maintenance needs, the regulated drain is best evaluated in terms of 7 subbasins as outlined on maps and schedules presented by the surveyor: Gosma West, Gosma East, Coons Branch, Boitler Main, Williamson Branch, and the remaining watershed acres. No reconstruction is necessary for Gosma West. Coons Branch, draining approximately 626.31 acres, requires a partial reconstruction in the form of a new 18-inch tile to be extended from the most recent 24-inch tile installation to the west of US 231. Boitler Main, draining approximately 906.5 acres, requires a partial reconstruction because the tile east of US 231 is in poor physical condition, with cracking and quartering resulting in poor drainage. A new 30-inch tile should be installed from the head wall to approximately 3,640 feet west of US 231. A new 18-inch tile should be installed from that point north to the north side of County Road 900 North, and a 24-inch tile should be installed from that point to the west side of County Road 750 West, generally following the path of the old tile. Williamson Branch, draining approximately 502.87 acres, requires a partial reconstruction to alleviate slow drainage arising out of the capacity of the existing tile. A new 24-inch and 18-inch tile should be installed from the head wall to the west side of US 231. Martin Branch, draining approximately 933.87 acres, requires a full reconstruction of the main east and west tile branches. However, the surveyor has reported that a partial reconstruction of the main and east branches, but not the west branch, would provide some relief at a cost more tolerable to landowners. The remaining watershed acres do not require reconstruction. However, a new maintenance rate is required for these acres as well as the watershed acres in the other subbasins to provide for adequate dredging, clearing, and maintenance work for the regulated drain as a whole. There is now $0 owed to the general drain fund for past maintenance on this ditch. The ditch drains 5,915.7 acres total. Estimated cost of reconstruction is set forth as follows. Coons Branch, $72,026.20. Boitler, Maine, $289,963.97. Williamson Branch, 163,400.62. Martin Branch for a partial reconstruction, $261,311.30. The estimated annual cost of maintenance is $32,586.33. Estimated benefits to the land from the maintenance and reconstruction exceed the costs, damages, and expenses of maintenance and reconstruction. A fund for reconstruction should be established, and the fund for annual maintenance should be retained. The schedule of assessments filed herewith should be accepted as presented with the following amendments. The assessment for the Martin Branch attributable to full reconstruction should be removed, and the assessment attributable to a partial reconstruction should be retained. The assessment list should be adjusted to reflect the revised list of assessments prepared by the Tippecanoe County Surveyor on June 2nd, 2020, and recommended to the Board. The assessment lists filed herewith, as amended, are fair and equitable and should be adopted. In order to provide the necessary maintenance, the maintenance fund should be maintained with a new annual rate of $5.50 per acre and $20 minimum for an 8-year period as benefited. In order to provide the necessary reconstruction, the reconstruction fund should be maintained with the following rates. Land drained in the Coons Branch subbasin should be assessed at an annual reconstruction rate of $23 per acre and a $20 minimum. Land drained in the Beutler Main subbasin should be assessed at an annual reconstruction rate of $64 per acre and a $20 minimum. Land drained in the Martin Branch subbasin should be assessed at an annual reconstruction rate of $56 per acre and $20 minimum. Land drained in the Williamson Branch subbasin should be assessed at an annual reconstruction rate of $65 per acre and $20 minimum. The assessment should be collected with the May 10th, 2021 taxes. Now, therefore, it is ordered that a reconstruction fund is established for the Beutler-Gosma Regulated Drain Number 95. The maintenance fund shall be retained. The maintenance fund is reestablished at the annual rate of $5.50 per acre and $20 minimum for 8-year period as benefited. The reconstruction fund is established at the annual rate set forth in paragraph 16 above. The annual rate, the schedule of assessments for the reconstruction and annual maintenance filed here and as amended in paragraph 13 above are adopted and made part hereof. The first annual assessment shall be collected with the May 10th, 2021 taxes. Dated at Lafayette, Indiana, this 3rd day of June, 2020. I recommend that to the board.
All right, questions from the board? All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval of those findings.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes. Thank you. All right.
Question from the audience.
Sure.
Why was there no vote on the entire Martin Branch proposal? We had a vote on every other proposal. Why wasn't there a vote on the entire Martin Branch proposal?
There was no motion for that.
Partial.
So there was, the motion was for the partial.
Is there any explanation why there wasn't a motion for the entire?
I think Mr. Brown stated that in his motion. No.
State that again?
I'm sorry?
Could you state why there's no motion for the entire Martin Branch?
My motion was simply that, that we would approve the Martin Branch, the alternative that was given to us, which was the partial. My reasoning being that we had a significant amount of acreage on the eastern part of that particular area that didn't appear to be served. And it was based on the testimony that we were given by other landowners also in that same area.
Thank you, everybody, for your input today. It was invaluable as we considered these options here. Is there any other business for this board?
I have none.